Hey there, I am back with another video, and today got an empty deck box. It's the variety box from Dan and Dave, but no decks in it. So what is this for? Well, wanted to take a look back at 2019 and celebrate what I thought were my personal top 12 decks, kind of fill this brick box with my best decks for 2019. Now, obviously, I didn't get every single deck that was out there. There are probably some decks that you think should be on the list, but this is my personal top 12 list. So let me know down in the comments if there's other decks that you think should be on the list or what your personal top 12 list looks like. But without any further ado, let's get this box filled up. So let's set this off to the side, and we'll start with my number 12 deck, and that is the Surf deck. This is from Riffle Shuffle, just a really fun, vibrant deck celebrating surf culture. You can see just from the design right on the front with that tentacle wrapped around the surfboard, and just a really cool color scheme with that bright teal color going all the way through. It's really accentuated as you go through the cards. When you add in that bright red that goes with it, it's a really great color scheme on these. And then the other thing I really love about these are the quartz. The quartz are all characters from surf culture, really fun illustrations, and just really well done. It's a marked deck as well. You have a beautiful design on the back with all these line drawings. So it's a marked deck, which gives it a little bit more fun to it. Just all around a really lighthearted deck with a great and unique color scheme to it. And so definitely worthwhile at number 12 on my list. So let's get that into the box and move on with number 11. And for me, number 11 was the Felidae Vibrant Edition. This is the latest from the Brain Vessel Artist series. This comes from artist John Kerr. And what I love about this one, it starts right there with the tuck. You can see that beautiful pearlescent finish, that kind of gold glowing sheen that comes on the deck itself. The art, though, is absolutely beautiful throughout this. John Kerr does basically nature scenes here. So right from the front, you can see some of his art here with that sleeping fox in the middle of the forest. But from the back designs, with that beautiful explosion of leaves with the squirrels at the center, and then all the way through it to the quartz and the jokers, it just has a really beautiful art style that shines throughout this deck. It's full custom with custom pips done again in that kind of natural look, and then absolutely stunning quartz as well. So I really love the artwork on this one. I think it's beautifully done, wrapped in a really nice tuck case with that gold glow. Really, I think the best deck yet of the artist series from Brain Vessel. And they've done some really good ones, but this is without a doubt for me the best one they've done yet. So that finds its spot at number 11. All right, moving on, number 10. I'm gonna cheat here and do a pair of decks, but from Steve Minty earlier in the year, we had the Thorns and Roses decks. These decks are inspired by Shakespearean stories. So you get Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet done throughout, and they celebrate kind of the celebratory and then the tragic sides of that in the Thorns and the Roses. Really beautiful tuck cases, designed to be slightly unique between the green and the red edition. But as you open it up, you'll get some classic looks at Steve Minty's style of art. For me, really like the deep colors that he uses on the cards themselves. The designs are intricate, beautiful, both on the back designs and then on the quartz themselves. I think he does, for me, some of the most expressive faces in quartz of anybody that's out there. Does really beautiful designs and just has lots. I mean, look how pensive that guy looks there. I mean, you get some great expressions throughout these and just some really nice full custom deck again. Really love the work that he did on this. Steve Minty always does a great job, and this deck is without a doubt one of his best in my opinion. So definitely worthwhile and finding its way to number 10 on the list. We have the Steve Minty Thorns and Roses decks, both the green and the red ones. So there's those. We have the red one up here and put that in the box. All right, we are up to, what are we on now? We are number 9. And for me, number 9 is going to be the Parlor Black Edition. And these are printed by Mundi, done by Gentleman Wake, and is an absolutely stunning deck of cards all the way around. He doesn't do a ton with like story or, highly customized courts, but it's just a classic deck of cards, really beautifully done. What makes this one unique, so this is the limited version of it. It's limited to 5,500. The red and blue decks are not limited, but for the limited edition, he really amped it up with the design. And where it shines the most is going to be on the card backs. If you flip this over, you'll see gold foiling right to the edge. That black and gold is a beautiful look. The pop that you get from the classic back design with that Gentleman Wake spade pip on the back just really glows nicely on this one. Looks beautiful in fans. And then the cards themselves throughout the entire Parlor series, all the backs on all the faces on the cards are the same, but just really beautifully done from the engraving style Parlor and Stockholm 17 who put together this design. And then to the slightly custom yet still very classic quartz. The quartz are a classic design, but then customized with kind of gentleman's implements in all of the quartz hands. A really beautifully handled deck of cards. Comes with a great set of different gaff cards that you can use as well. It's just a really beautifully executed, and I will say for my money, Mundi does an outstanding job with these uniquely printed decks, like with foils and holographic foil and things like that on the backs. Mundi always does a fantastic job with that. This deck is no exception. So that black and gold really, really stands out and helps this one rise up to number 9 on my list. There you go, Parlor Black Edition makes its way in. All right, next up, we have another one with a very similar color scheme. So moving on to number 8, we have Betrayer's Invictus from Thirdway Industries. Giovanni Maroni, one of my absolute favorite designers, and this one very similar in color scheme and look to the last one they were looking at. So you got that black and gold wrapped all the way around. It's a limited deck here. You can see I got number 638, but not embossed or anything like that. Just a beautiful foiling with that black and gold and a classic Giovanni Maroni design. As you open it up, it goes through on the cards themselves, starting with the back design. And for me, this is absolutely stunning. I think it's just beautifully done. The black card with the heavy gold foiling. Beautiful symmetrical design done on there. And very classic for him. Again, printed by Mundi. They, like I said, do a great job with the printing of foils on that one. You can see that shine on there. And then what helps this one stand out is just Giovanni Maroni's design sense. He always does a phenomenal job with his court cards, creating stories. This one looking at betrayal throughout history. You get elements that tell the stories throughout. He draws beautiful figures of women throughout his deck. For the queens, but every single court card is going to be a completely unique design that kind of fits into his overall storyline. Otherwise, you have a full custom pips throughout. But for me, combining that black and gold back, just like we saw with the Parlor, with the absolutely stunning quartz that Giovanni Maroni always does, helps this one rise just that little bit extra and make its way to number 7 on my list. All right, so Betrayer's Invictus joins the case. All right, moving on to number 7. And with number 7, we're gonna make our way to Theory 11. And what is one of my favorite Theory 11 decks that has been put together, and that is Tavern on the Green. Now, a lot of people prefer, Provision maybe as their favorite deck, but for me, Tavern on the Green was just an absolutely beautifully done deck. That green on green foil combined with the bits of gold foil just looks absolutely great. It's one of those that, from a distance, you maybe can't appreciate how nice this deck is, but then once you get it in hand, you get it close up, you get it turned and start looking at that golden green foil, it just pops out so incredibly well. I love the sheep and the design on the front, and then throughout you get a really nicely designed deck right from the back with that green on white, really unique coloring. And then looking all the way through at the cards. It's done by Kevin Cantrell Studios, who've done a few other decks in the past, including a couple with Theory 11. And so you get a full custom deck right from the stunning Ace of Spades, custom pips, And then classic Kevin Cantrell style quartz. If you've seen his before, you'll recognize his artwork immediately with those line drawings and the colorful, vibrant looks. The gold ink on the cards themselves help these stand out just that much more. It's just, for me, it's a luxury deck all around. It's one of the more limited ones that 311's done. And the unique coloring with that heavy use of green, celebrating Tavern on the green, really just leaves an impression for me. And this is one that I always come back to when I'm looking through 311 decks. Is one of my absolute favorites. So number 7 right there, Tavern on the green from 311. All right, moving on to number 6. We're coming back to Kevin Cantrell, but we're going to Art of Play. And I've got the Standards Black Edition. Now, this comes in black, red, and gold. But for me, the Standards Black is the best of the 3 editions. You get a great contrast on this one with those black, red, and gold foil. It looks really nice all the way around. So it's a black tuck, red and gold foil, that standard logo on the back, and then the beautiful, rich design on the front. This is a deck of cards that looks at the gold standard and the history of the creation and use of the gold standard throughout. So that was kind of the inspiration behind the deck. But you get custom printing on the interior of the tuck, and then again, a Kevin Cantrell designed deck. Does a ton of intricate detail on the back here with that beautiful gold ink design all the way down and that 2-way back. And then as you go through, didn't spare anything on the course. Even the ad cards to me look fantastic. And then much like we looked at with the last Kevin Cantrell deck on Tavern in the Green, you have beautiful aces, custom pips that I absolutely love. Look at how detailed he put in, it was an entire image just inside of the spade pip on these. And then going down, and then very similar style to the last one, you got those line drawings, but maybe even a little bit more detailed on this one. A little bit less simple of a design, but still classically Kevin Cantrell in the quartz. Looking at different, in this case, some of the royalty that were involved in the gold standard and its history throughout the world. So really beautiful deck. Love all 3 versions of this one. I don't personally actually have a gold edition, but from a pure design standpoint, I think the black one is the one that just shows off that design the best with all of that contrast. So it makes its way in at number 6. All right, 5 to go. We're in the top 5. And one of the designers we have not seen yet is Jackson Robinson from King's Wild Project. Well, we're about to change that with my number 5 pick, and that is the King's Wild Back to School deck. Now, this is simpler. This is not going to be covered in foil, but the design inspiration on this one is just one of my favorites. Obviously, right away, you're going to see it's inspired by a crayon box, has the look of that classic Crayola box with that yellow. Even the flap kind of opens in a unique way. And right from the beginning, as you see that extra card peeking out with the picture of the crayons on it, you get the sense, just a really fun deck. But in addition to that design inspiration, he carried that through to the cards themselves, and they're all going to be hand colored. One of my favorite elements on this is the fact that he carried that through. They're actually hand colored by his daughters, just adding a little bit more to the story. And he got to really feature them, Clara and Scarlet, on the 2 quartz, or the 2 jokers rather. And see their coloring work there. And then all the way through every single one of the cards, all of the pips are going to be hand colored in crayon. And then right through to the quartz, which did a really nice job done on the quartz themselves. So there's your back design. I love the theme on this deck. I love the whimsy that went into this one. I love the nostalgia. Just so much to like about how well Jackson Robinson did with the theme on this deck. And just shows what sort of creativity he still has even after all of the dozens of decks that he's put out over the years. They even did some kind of fun things with this one in different versions. The original standard one is my favorite still because it just has that classic look. The coloring on the deck is really exactly like you'd find on a classic one. But one of the other really fun ones that he did the polka dot version. This is one that he signed and then let his daughters kind of splash with paint and stickers. So it's a very limited run. I think it's about 120 of these, and every single one of these is going to be unique. So the placement of stickers and the splatters of paint, because they were just kind of done randomly, every single deck's going to be kind of like a fingerprint and done uniquely. They did some kind of fun things with different versions of this deck, but the standard one, again, from a design standpoint, still remains one of my favorite decks and easily makes its way into the top 5 for 2019 for me. So add that in, and now we get to the top 4. And at number 4 on my list, I have a new designer that's out there, and that is Felidae. So Felidae comes to us out of Italy. Really beautifully designed deck, done by Yoku Playing Cards. So brand new designer, and it is just a testament to how much can be done with foiling on a tuck case. So Felidae is their first design from Yoku, and just take a look at the level of detail they got on the foiling on the tuck. So it's inspired by stories from Sicilian mythology. And here's probably my favorite part of the whole thing. Take a look at that. How fine that detail is on the foiling on the back. It's just an amazing achievement that they have here on how detailed they were able to make the back. So credit to the designers for putting this together. Credit to Mundi for printing this one out and getting it so effectively done. This is, again, a story-based deck, like I said. So there's the back design of the cards, also beautifully done and printed on this one. Just as good. And I'm telling you, I poured over this thing. It is flawless in its printing. So huge ups to Mundi for doing a great job with the printing on this one, despite the super high level of detail. This one does also feature full custom quartz, and the quartz are dripping with imagery. Yes, they're mythological creatures, but everything from the color scheme, the cups in their hand, and little symbols going all the way through. You have almond flowers that all fit into the story. Check out my review. There's too much to go into here in terms of what is fit into this story, but I do have a full review where I go more into this. There is a ton to unpack with these cards, but they're a great design. I love story-based cards. You can probably pick that up kind of from some of the theme of what I picked a lot in my decks. But this one, from that, what really helped this one stand out, yes, the quartz, yes, the story, I think that's a big part of it. But what really jumped this one up into that top 4 spot is that beautiful foiling done in the back and that level of detail. So really big fan of Felidae. And that makes its way in at number 4. All right, top 3. Now I go to a designer we have not seen on the list, and we're gonna open up with Luminosity. So Luminosity is just an absolutely beautiful deck, very recently released. But this one's done by Jody Eklund and is another story-based deck. And it comes in a few different versions. This is the limited edition one, and probably my favorite with this blue. The tuck case is really nice, that navy blue. I love this gold emblem on the front. I don't know if you guys ever played Final Fantasy VIII. This actually really reminds me of the key that you kind of see featured on Final Fantasy VIII in that lion head. That's what it reminds me of, but I think it's a really beautiful design. And you can see here a little bit of the story of the Lucent lands that inspired this. But what my favorite part of this whole thing is the quartz inside. So you have a beautiful back design done in blue and silver foil, kind of pops out with different designs depending on how you tilt it, with that two-headed design there. Really beautifully done. My favorite's going to be the quartz. So you have a full custom deck, really beautiful aces, but what you really get the best of when you get to those quartz, and look at how beautifully illustrated these are. These are some of the most highly detailed quartz that I've seen. One of the goals that Eklund says that he has is when he produces a deck, he wants it to be something you look at and like, I could not do that myself. You look at some decks and say, hey, I could maybe draw that, I could maybe get something out there, but this is one that, just look at that detail, the shading, the expressions, the clothes, everything about this is just completely hand-drawn and absolutely beautifully done. And all unique as well. It's not a repeated design or anything like that. Every single one of these is going to be a unique character design that fits into his overall story. So I really love what was done. Heavy use of metallic inks, both gold and silver throughout this deck. Really helped this one stand out in a big way. So easy to see, hopefully, for you guys, why this deck right here, Luminosity, the limited edition, easily finds its way in at number 3. So we're almost filled up here. We only have 2 more slots left. And I've already shown one King's Wild deck, but I've got another. And this is the last of the King's Wild Shorts line for 2019. It is the Nutcracker deck. They got here the standard and the limited. They've got the same cards. I haven't actually opened the limited version. I only opened the standard, but the limited tuck is my favorite of the two. Has a beautiful contrast with that green and red, and obviously tons of foil right from the tuck. But we're only just getting started. Now, it's obviously inspired by the Nutcracker Ballet, but the reason this makes its way all the way up to number 2 is the jaw-dropping design and foiling that was done on these cards. These are foiled on both sides. It's kind of what makes this one unique. So you have the really nice design here on the back, all done in foil, gold, green, red. Really just a beautiful shine to this design on here. But then as you flip it over, you have foiling on the faces as well. Every single card through this deck, right? From the extra cards with some of the Nutcracker characters, the aces, number cards, all the way down to the really beautiful quartz on this one. All done in that foil. This one just shines and screams luxury in your hands. Really beautifully done. I feel like Jackson Robinson always kind of saves something a little bit extra for his December decks. Last year he did the Deck the Halls deck that was kind of a sweater feel to the outside of the tuck case. And he did it again in 2019 and really amped this one up. I'll show you guys one of my favorite quartz on here, the King of Hearts, featuring the Rat King. You can see that shine on there and the reflection, but just a really beautiful design. This one stands out in a huge way. This is one that you're gonna remember as you look through any deck of cards, and I think the best design that Jackson Robinson did in 2019 here with the Nutcracker deck. So Nutcracker makes its way in at number 2. So that is it. That's we are down to the number 1 deck. The only one that could top that one. And we're gonna go back to Thirdway Industries. And for me, the best deck of the year, the deck of 2019, for my collection at least, is the Black Monolith deck. This is one that Giovanni Maroni described as kind of one of the craziest decks that he's put together. And you can see on this one already from the tuck, you have that black with black and holographic foil. Just a really beautiful, shining deck all the way through. That holographic foil looks really great on this one. But as you open it up, it does not end there. Every single card, both on the front and the back, has this holographic foil. Just like some of the other ones we looked at before, this is printed by Mundi. They did an outstanding job again with this one in executing. But the design, it takes a really unique look at both holographic and neon inks put together on a black card back. Pops out so beautifully. These cards are just jaw-dropping the very first time you open them. I love the designs of these backs. Continues on the front though. The extra cards have an especially high amount of foil. Those jokers, I'm still amazed every time I look at them, but they're classic Giovanni characters popping out on these beautiful holographic cards. And then you have holographic foils on all of them, even down to the numbers that have these holographic borders on here. And then you, of course, include a classic story-based line of quartz from Giovanni Maroni. These quartz go into a custom mythology, kind of a futuristic sort of mythology from Giovanni Maroni, created a complete story that is loosely based on Greek, Roman, but it's kind of a meta mythology that encompasses all of the different mythologies of the world, and gives it this kind of futuristic space sort of feel to it as well, in my mind.
But I love the story on these. Check out my full review of these because you got to hear more of the story of these quartz. But the design on this one with the holographic foil is really what helps this one stand out in a massive way. Just an absolutely beautiful deck. Easily, to me, this is, when I made the top 12 list, it's hard to come up with and limit down to just 12 decks. I left some really great ones off, but this is one that I penciled in at number 1 right from the beginning. And I'll say, with some of the fatter decks, they don't actually all fit into the top. Or there you go. A little bit of a tight squeeze there, but imagine that squeezed in right there at number 1. So that is it. That is my top 12 decks for 2019. What do you think? Did I get it right? I definitely left some decks off. I left off, things like the Order deck didn't make its way on here. Steve Minty had another great deck in Ascension. Not going to see that one on here. There's lots of other great decks that didn't make their way in. It's tough. It's a tough thing to limit down to 12, to the 12 best. So let me know what you guys think. Subscribe. 2020 is going to be a great year. Lots more deck reviews, unboxings going to be coming. We'll try to get even more great content to you guys. As good of a year as 2019 was, I think 2020 is going to be even better for decks. So make sure you're subscribed to see what else we got on the channel. So that's it for this one. That's the top 12 list. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one. Happy 2020.